Welcome to One Shot Presents. I'm Brick.
And I'm Tiger.
Yeah. What we do here is we review comics and action figures. And this week, we're just going to jump right into it. I'm reviewing Siege by Brian Michael Bendis. Now here's the thing. I'm sick of events. I'm really sick of events. All they are is this big spectacular thing that draws all the comic book fans to go run off and buy every single issue that they possibly can, whether it be Marvel or DC. Now the problem that I have with Siege is that it's no different than Civil War. There's some sort of inciting incident where something blows up, 100 billion people get killed, Volstagg, the fat guy from Thor comes in and blows up the stadium, and here comes Norman and his Dark Avengers, and they're going to kick the hell out of him, and of course it's all being set up by Loki. There's nothing original about the story. It's no different than any other event that's happened in Marvel. Blackest Night's the same way. But anyway, the point being is that I'm kind of tired of reading them. They're all the same. Am I going to stick with it? I don't know. Maybe, possibly. Did it start off strong? I don't know. Maybe, possibly. But the truth is that I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5.
What was kind of your agenda with Alchemy? I mean, or with Kabuki or any of your other works? I mean, is there a secret motive that you have behind things kind of in a similar fashion?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
I'm guessing you weren't an assassin that's now trying to bring down a corporation.
Well, I mean, all of us probably have come, at some point in our life, have felt like we were maybe a cog in some kind of machine without realizing it, or, grown up with a certain point of view, and maybe we're considerate about some things without realizing it. And then once you have that moment of realization, you look back at things and think like, wow, maybe I need to do things a little bit differently. And not so much that you need to have a polarized approach of what you're doing before, but just look at things into a larger and integrated way. And like Kabuki too, there's stuff that you can look back and think like, well, in retrospect, I don't think this was the right action for me to have or the thing to do. And hopefully the rest, sort of this creation versus destruction idea. There's moments where the character in the story kind of has an epiphany that a certain amount of their background has, they feel like it was more destructive than creative, and they reach a point where they say, well, from now on, I want it to, I want to be creating things and sending a ripple, in this world that I think is helpful and useful and positive, rather than the other way.
Well, and you mentioned that, you want to be doing things at your peak proficiency, not just kind of like, I have to put on another issue of Kabuki, this is just terrible. Is that, because, you talk about in the book, I think you use Archimedes as an example that he was taking a break, taking a bath, and that's when he discovered displacement.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what the Shy Creatures is all about? That it's, because stylistically it seems like a complete departure from the stuff from Daredevil that I've seen or Kabuki, but it's just its own little entity. Was that kind of what that was? Is to take a break from the watercolor-esque type things you do and do like something else?
Well, yeah, maybe and so I guess that sort of leads me to two responses I want to get. I guess I'll talk to you stylistically first. With this volume, The Alchemy, I wanted to use a variety of different approaches in it, and I felt like I had worked out a few different storytelling motifs and visual themes in the story. There's kind of like one each issue, and then I'll use like that sort of, maybe like a template for what the composition of the page is for each issue, and introduce like a different visual template that hopefully is kind of like an icon for a certain idea. And introduce one of those in each issue and change the storytelling to a certain degree for each chapter. And then at a certain point in the story, weave them all together and bring them all together and juggle all those different approaches at the same time. So I definitely wanted to do that, and I wanted that to reflect the arc of the character and where the character was as far as what's happening in the process of the story. But I also wanted to be a certain level of accessibility to people who had read the story before. Right. For some people, this has been their very first experience of my work, or their first Kabuki volume, and I wanted to be very approachable to them. So I wanted to satisfy both of, if those people are familiar with some of my mixed media stuff from Daredevil, or the people who just read the previous Kabuki story before this. Right. I wanted the first issue to have a certain amount of familiarity to them, so it wasn't completely different. So I use a certain amount of rendering in watercolor, and little by little, combine it with more mixed media and a little bit even more unconventional storytelling. and then chapter by chapter, I would really try to introduce like a new approach as the character moves. But you don't want to hit people in the face with that right at the beginning. You don't want it to be too abstract. You got to sort of use this ratio of, essentially what I do is, like when you're meeting someone for the first time, you're experiencing them externally first. And as you get to know them, you start to see like how they think and how they look at things, and it's a different kind of experience. So I'll use that approach in my storytelling quite a bit, but especially with this. So I'll render things more realistically at the very beginning and show you external action, and then little by little start breaking down the rendering approach and boiling it down to the more minimalist approach and more, I guess, more graphic language, as those graphic languages tend to stand for something that's happening in their head, some kind of ideological approach to things.
All right, everybody, so we're here on the set of Brick and Tiger versus the Confederate Army, doing a little green screen right now. But here's my review, Dress as an Angel. I'm gonna do Blackest Night, number 6 of 8. Now this is it's a big event that's going on right now, and it's kind of got me feeling like I don't like events anymore. Sure, they're cool when you're a kid. Who doesn't love an event? But now I don't. The thing about it is it's not the writing, it's not the art. I think both of those are actually pretty dang good. My problem is the pacing of it. It's 8 issues long, and so I can't really remember what happened in the first issue. And to be honest with you, and this is maybe my own problem, I don't have the patience to sit around and wait 4 years to find out what's going on. My other big problem is, if you take another event as an example, Civil War felt like if you just read the comic book called Civil War, you got a complete story in 6 issues. It was made better if you read New Avengers or Spider-Man or whatever, but you didn't need to. You could just read Civil War. Blackest Night feels like you have to read literally every single DC title ever created, and that's getting kind of irritating to me because, I don't want to read Teen Titans. I'm sorry. But yeah, I just think it's kind of a crappy thing, and it's kind of making me realize that I don't like events anymore. I don't really care about what happens to Mira or whatever Aquaman's wife's name is or whoever she is. I just don't care. So, sorry, but I'm going to have to give it a 1 out of 5.
Well, that's our show for this week. Thank you for joining us. We want to thank Night Flight Comics, the greatest sponsors in the world. And also, as a reminder, if you're in the Salt Lake area, we'll be showing Brick and Tiger versus the Confederate Army, or How They Saved Santa Claus, on January 21st at the Public Library, downtown Salt Lake City.
That's the Nancy Tessman Auditorium too. But if you're not in town, if you don't live in Salt Lake, the Beehive State of Utah, don't worry. The Brick and Tiger versus Confederate Army is going to be up on YouTube. It'll be on our website. It'll be on comicsnexus.com. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for all of you out-of-staters to see it. But you're not going to get the same power punch that everybody here is going to get. So sucks to be you. Anyways, that's our show. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Ickity, ickity, ickity. All right. I'm a little devil!